I literally cannot believe this clip of Elon Musk talking about Bill Gates. This is a cracker.
I'm gonna ask if you saw the Bill Gates memo that he put out. A lot of people are talking about this memo. It did
Yeah. I
I
just
guess
want to say Billy G is not my love.
Oh man.
But did climate change become woke? Did it become woke? And is it over being woke? What happened and what happened with Billy G? I mean,
Great Tesla. Great question. Great question.
Yeah.
You think that someone like Bill Gates, who clearly started a technology company that's one of the biggest companies in the world, Microsoft, you think he'd be really quite strong in the sciences, but actually, my at least direct conversations with him have he is not strong in the sciences. This is really surprising. He came to visit me at the Tesla Gigafactory in Austin and was telling me that it's impossible to have a long-range semi-truck. And I was like, well, but we literally have them. And you can drive them, and Pepsi is literally using them right now. And you can drive them yourself or send someone. Obviously, Bill Gates not going to drive it himself, but you can send a trusted person to drive the truck and verify that it can do the things that we say it's doing. And he's like, no, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And I'm like, okay. I'm like kind of stuck there. Then I was like, well, so it must be that you disagree with the watt hours per kilogram of the battery pack, so that you must think that perhaps we can't achieve the energy density of the battery pack, or that the watt hours per mile of the truck is too high, and that when you combine those two numbers, the range is low. And so which one of those numbers do you think we have wrong? And what numbers do you think are correct? And he didn't know any of the numbers. And I'm like, well, then doesn't it seem that it's perhaps premature to conclude that a long-range semi cannot work if you do not know the energy density of the battery pack or the energy efficiency of the truck chassis?
But yeah, he's now taken a 180 on climate. He's saying maybe this shouldn't be the top priority.
Climate is gay.
It's just, yeah.
Why would he say climate is gay? That's wrong.
It's totally retarded.
Why would Bill Gates say that climate is gay and retarded? Come on.
Maybe he's got some data centers he's got to put up. Does he have to stand up a data center for Sam Altman or something? I don't know. What is Azure? I don't know. He changed his position. I can't figure out why.
I mean, the reality of the whole climate change thing is that you've just had sort of people who say it doesn't exist at all, and then people who say are super alarmist and saying Florida is going to be underwater in 5 years. And obviously, neither of those two positions are true. The reality is you can measure the carbon concentration in the atmosphere. Again, you could just literally buy a CO2 monitor from Amazon. It's like $50, and you can measure it yourself. And you can say, okay, well, look, the parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere has been increasing steadily at 2 to 3 per year. At some point, if you continue to take billions, eventually trillions of tons of carbon from deep underground and transfer it to the atmosphere and oceans, so you transfer it from deep underground into the surface cycle, you will change the chemical constituency of the atmosphere and oceans. You just literally will. Then now you can say, to what degree and over what time scale. And the reality is that, in my opinion, is that we've got at least 50 years before it's a serious issue. I don't think we've got 500 years, but we've probably got 50. It's not 5 years. So if you're trying to get to the right order of magnitude of accuracy, I'd say the concern level for climate change is on the order of 50 years. It's definitely not 5, and I think it probably isn't 500. so really the right course of action is actually just the reasonable course of action, which is to lean in the direction of sustainable energy, and lean in the direction of solar, and of a sort of a solar battery future, and generally have the rules of the system lean in that direction. I don't think we need massive subsidies, but then we also shouldn't have massive subsidies for the oil and gas industry. Okay, so the oil and gas industry has massive tax write-offs that they don't even think of as subsidies, because these things have been in place for, in some cases, 80 years, but they're not there for other industries. So when you've got special tax conditions that are in one industry and not another industry, I call that a subsidy. Obviously, it is. But they've taken it for granted for so long in oil and gas that they don't think of it as a subsidy. So the right course of action, of course, is to remove, in my opinion, subsidies from all industries. But the political reality is that the oil and gas industry is very strong in the Republican Party, but not in the Democratic Party. So you will not see, obviously, even the tiniest subsidy being removed from the oil, gas, and coal industry. In fact, there were some that were added to the oil, gas, and coal industry in the sort of big bill, and there were a massive number of sustainable energy incentives that were removed. Some of which I agreed with, by the way. Some of the incentives have gone too far. But anyway, the actual, I think, the correct scientific conclusion, in my opinion, and I think we can back this up with solid reasoning. Ask Grok, for example, is that we should lean in the direction of moving towards a sustainable energy future. We will eventually run out of oil, gas, and coal to burn anyway, because there's a finite amount of that stuff. And we will eventually have to go to something that lasts a long time that is sustainable.
Bill Gates told Elon that long-range electric semi-trucks are impossible while literally standing in a Tesla factory that makes them. This reveals something crucial about how tech leaders think about new technology. Mr. Gates built Microsoft by understanding software deeply, but when it comes to hardware and physics, he's operating on assumptions rather than data. He formed an opinion about what's possible without knowing the actual engineering specs. The battery energy density question Elon asked is a key metric. If you know what hours per kilogram of the battery pack and what hours per mile of the truck, you can calculate range. Mr. Gates couldn't answer either question, but was certain the conclusion was impossible. That's not scientific thinking, that's just belief, and maybe he's still butthurt about his alleged short on the company. So then I think this makes an interesting connection between Bill and his climate positioning. He's been one of the biggest voices saying we need different solutions other than just electric vehicles. He's pushed hydrogen, alternative fuels, and other approaches, but if he's making these arguments without understanding the baseline engineering of what already exists, his entire framework might be built on outdated or incorrect assumptions. Tesla's semi-truck and Pepsi deal is actually really important because it's not a prototype or a demo. Pepsi is running these trucks in their actual logistic operations today. They are delivering products with them. It's a deployed technology in commercial use. Bill dismissing it while standing in the factory shows he's not updating his mental model. What's really happening here is Bill is anchored to old data. Battery technology from 5 or 10 years ago couldn't support long-range semis. Bill probably read papers or talked to experts who told him the physics didn't work, but he never updated that information as battery energy density improved. Tesla's been hitting new benchmarks every few years. The 4680 cells they're producing now have completely different capabilities than older battery tech. Bill is arguing against a version of electric semis that doesn't exist anymore. This also explains why established tech leaders often miss the next wave. Bill dominated software, but he's not adapting to the hardware revolution happening in EVs and energy. It also means he's not even trying to understand how it actually works. He's relying on his reputation and intuition instead of doing the homework. That can work when you're operating in your domain of expertise, but it fails completely when you're making claims about engineering fields you haven't studied. Perhaps Bill Gates is also just a symptom of a bigger problem with how people talk about climate and energy. Elon's climate take is that we've got roughly 50 years before it's serious. Elon says people are fighting between it doesn't exist at all and Florida is going to be underwater in the next 5 years, and realistically, neither of those are true. Elon's rejecting both sides of the climate debate and proposing something different. The alarmist side that's been predicting immediate catastrophe for decades and keeps being wrong about the timeline, and then the denial side ignores basics about what happens when you move carbon from underground into the atmosphere. Both positions make it impossible to have a rational conversation about actual solutions. I think the 50-year timeline is important because it changes what actions make sense. If we had 5 years, you'd need emergency measures, central planning, and massive government intervention. If we have 50 years, you can let market forces and gradual technology improvement handle it. You don't need to force anything, you just need to remove the barriers and let the better technology win. For example, Elon's point about oil and gas subsidies is an interesting one. The industry acts like EVs only exist because of the subsidies, while pretending their own tax breaks aren't subsidies too. These oil and gas write-offs have been in place so long that nobody even thinks about them. They're just assumed to be normal, but they're government policy that benefits one energy source over another. Elon's solution is simple: remove all subsidies and let technologies compete on actual merit. If electric vehicles are better, they'll win without help. If oil and gas are better, they'll win without help. But we can't know which is actually superior while the government has its thumb on the scale in both directions. We are going to run out anyway, which I think is the strongest point here. Eventually, we have to transition to something more sustainable. Waiting too long might also lead to a crisis when we do eventually start running low. Elon's arguing for the gradual approach that doesn't require emergency measures or massive subsidies. This seems like a calmer and more logical approach. But what I would say to anyone out there is, have you actually tried driving an electric car? I am a petrol head through and through. The demise of internal combustion engines is a tragedy, and I'm going to be just as upset as any other petrol head if and when a Lamborghini eventually go to being all electric. But the reality is, as someone who owns an electric car and is a petrol head, for the average person it's just a much better experience. The fact that drives us to a more sustainable future is frankly a miracle because the product is objectively better and is able to be powered on renewables.
One of our clients started with 0 audience. Now they're doing $100,000 months thanks to YouTube. And they're not alone. We've helped 3 businesses hit that level just by growing them a YouTube channel. Want to see how this could work for your business? Book a call with me below.